Hi, Tanya. It's an honor and so exciting to have you here in person.
I'm so happy to be back in Israel, but of course to see you in person too, Inba.
Thank you, thank you. So, you're a certified nutritionist,
Mm-hmm.
the founder of F Factor,
Yes.
and since October 7th, you have totally shifted your platform. Your whole platform was about lifestyle and nutrition and health. I was following you before,
Thank you.
and you totally shifted your platform to advocate for Israel, and that's an amazing, amazing thing. It is, not everyone does that, and that's why it's so special to see, Jewish women, strong Jewish women advocating for Israel. I know you're here with the FIDF
Yes.
delegation. It's your third visit to Israel since October 7th. And tomorrow morning, you're going back to the southern kibbutzim
Mm-hmm.
that you visited just a month
Mm-hmm.
after the October 7th massacre.
Yes.
I was there 10 days after, and I came home. I had no voice. And as metaphoric as it was because of what can you say? So I'm sure it had a very strong impact on you. Tell me a little bit about your experience visiting
Yeah.
there.
So we had the fortune of visiting with the World Zionist Organization, and I felt it was really important to come so shortly after October 7th because already we were seeing October 7th denialism the way that we had seen Holocaust denialism.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I felt very motivated to come to Israel to bear witness, but more importantly, to document and share with my following what had occurred in the face of those trying to deny the atrocities. So we visited Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and it is an experience that will stay with one forever. The amount of destruction wasn't the only thing that disturbed me. It was the aggressiveness. It was how calculated it was. And to see these homes riddled with bullet holes, some that were burned down because they had, just thrown grenades in them and then the homes caught fire. Some had no roofs. You saw that this was a very calculated attack. But what really struck me was the juxtaposition of death, because all the blood we saw was still red. It hadn't even oxidized yet, and you could smell death everywhere. The burning of flesh, it is a very unique, horrific smell. What really struck me was here you have evil and death, and yet over here you had so many signs of life that had just been there. It reminded me of when you saw pictures of like Hiroshima, where they explained that people were living and then they were no longer living. So because it was Shabbat
And it was holiday. It was
a
Simchat
holiday.
Torah morning.
As we were walking through these homes, guided, respectfully, you saw cups of coffee that were still out. You saw
The
plates
challah, yeah, on the table.
that you recognize the individuals at the kibbutz were living their lives, just a normal Saturday, waking up, and then experienced the worst atrocity that has befallen upon the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And it was just devastating to me to see children's dolls, bicycles laying on their side, like where you could see that these families were living peacefully. I mean, we're talking a mile from Gaza. The individuals at kibbutzim, we call them in the United States peaceniks, people that want peace.
Yeah.
And to understand sort of the innocence of their souls, the well-intention of these people's soul, was something that was just so horrific to process. And I was geared up with a helmet and bulletproof vest, and you could
hear the bombs, the whole
going
time.
off. And what's special for me is going back now, almost a year and a half later, is that while the first visit was to bear witness and to document, we know how much Israel has been hurting, and yet we are the most resilient people in the world. So now my mission is to help rebuild. So we're going to be going back and helping to rebuild the kibbutz. We're going to be helping to build a garden to bring back life where so much death has occurred.
Yeah, totally. And you are going back tomorrow to the
Yes.
southern kibbutzim with the FIDF and supporting their families, the soldiers' families, and the soldiers themselves.
Yes.
Is there any story, any specific story of, families or soldiers that really, touched you?
When I came right after October 7th, we were taken up north to meet the family of a soldier who was Druze. And I'm remiss to admit I really knew very little about the Druze population. I didn't realize that these were Arabs that live in Israel. They have citizenship. They are part of the IDF. They're soldiers. And to hear about this young man named Solomon, who on October 7th, without even direction, picked up his platoon, went with 4 tanks, went into Gaza, saved many soldiers, went back and then returned one more time and then lost his life with, he's a brand new father, and he not only lost his life, but his son lost his father. And to sit with that family, it was of course so painful for anyone to lose their life in war, especially so selflessly. But it was so educational to me to understand when people use the words like apartheid state, to see that the Druze, who are Muslims and not Jewish, feel so proud
And connected
to the land that they're willing to fight for Israel and lose their lives. And it just contradicts the entire narrative of Israel being an apartheid state. So
Exactly.
I was just terribly moved, educated, and inspired to bring that story back home.
That's amazing. That is a very, very, very strong story. Now that everyone's talking about the anti-Semitism, even more in the apartheid as if that's happening in Israel. And I know that anti-Semitism is rising in campuses in America. And you were born in New York, right?
I was born in New York.
Yeah.
I went to the University of Michigan undergrad and then returned to New York for my master's. I have 5 children
That are going to university.
that are in college. So it's hitting very close to home that universities are exploding with anti-Semitism, and like a cancer, it keeps metastasizing. Just when we think, okay, we have this under control, it starts up again.
I know your son goes to the Michigan, Toby is going to Michigan University. So now I know that you went to the same university.
Did. We share an
How
alma mater.
exciting. That's very, very amazing. So even for you to experience the same university that you went to, now your son's going, and there's so much anti-Semitism rising, is probably very scary for you. And I know that you just had, you posted a video about your son. There's a special rock that symbols unity, right?
So at the University of Michigan, there's this huge boulder, like the size of this table, that sits in the center of campus, and it's surrounded by many of the fraternities and sororities, many of which are Jewish. But this rock is used for the students to paint and able to express whatever they're feeling. And it's typically feelings of like school pride if they're playing a football game against like another team, or just to celebrate, a sorority getting their new pledges, or it also could be for activism if like they're behind something. So one of the things that I have taught all my children is, in the face of anti-Semitism, the most important thing you can do is stand strong in your Jewish identity. That you cannot hide, you cannot be fearful, because then the bully wins. And I was so proud that my son, along with the Chabad and many of the Jewish students, they went to this rock, and after the deaths of the Bibas family, they painted this rock orange. And on it, they actually wrote the names Kafir, Ariel, and Shiri. And My son tied, to tefillin, and they all prayed. And it was a really beautiful moment where the Jewish students were saying, we are not going anywhere. Our identity will not be erased. And as a mother, I could not be more proud. On my way to Israel this morning, I was sent a video that this rock that was painted in a way to honor the memory of a family of innocent civilians that
a mother and her two babies
that really became some of the what most recognized faces of this hostage crisis, that it was not only defaced, but that the names were actually crossed out. And I just sat there with such awe, because what kinds of evil would erase the memory of innocents that were taken from their beds, had not committed any crime. And it really shows you how this pro-Palestinian movement has just lost its way. There's no question that this is a fight between good and evil.
Yeah.
And anyone that is supporting this movement, you are terrorist sympathizers. Mm-hmm. And how could anyone rationalize that behavior?
No. Yeah, totally. And, where do you think this future for the Jewish students in universities in America is going? What can change? What can change this?
When we look back on Jewish history, it is always the most horrific moments that there is an awakening and often a reckoning, and therefore some form of correction. In the United States, we had turned a blind eye to the fact that Qatar had been funding billions of dollars over the last 4 decades, indoctrinating academia, and then these professors are then indoctrinating our students with this anti-Zionism rhetoric. And we were just blind to it. As Jews, we also once again became very comfortable and assimilated due to how progressive we are, due to the influence we have in many industries and the success we've had. And I think what this anti-Semitism has shown us is ultimately no one is coming to fight for us. No one is coming to protect us. Mm-hmm. So the silver lining is you have seen a stronger Jewish community than we have in quite some time. And as far as seeing this anti-Semitism, thank God Trump was elected, where now he has constructed a task force to go to the 10 hotbeds of anti-Semitism on campus, schools like Columbia, schools like Harvard, and to do a complete exploration, investigation of what has occurred. And there is going to be a no-tolerance policy. And I do think that that kind of extreme attention ultimately will lead to a safer campus for all students, where there's an understanding that despite Jews' success in the world, we are still only 2% of the population. We are a minority. Yeah. And therefore, there is no reason that our civil rights should be any less important than any minority group. And what we've seen on these campuses is, if this had been done to another minority, if a group of white students wouldn't let a group of black students cross campus, in this day and age, that expression of racism would never be tolerated. But somehow you're pro-Palestinian protesters blocking the way for Jewish students to go to class. There's no difference. Yeah. And I think that experience has opened the eyes of many people. And lastly, I think what's going to end up happening is a lot of Jewish families and philanthropists are going to be defunding these established universities where we once felt so proudful to be a part of. And it really started with Bill Ackman, where he was one of Harvard's biggest donors. Dan Loeb just donated $1 million to Yeshiva University. And I think what Jews are seeing is we need to support our own and stop supporting organizations that don't support us.
Yeah.
So to summarize, I think ultimately this explosion of anti-Semitism, while it has been so disheartening and terrifying for students, I do believe it's going to lead to very positive change.
Hopefully, hopefully. Do you think that's going to shift some of these students to go and study only in certain university that there's less anti-Semitism?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
My son, who's graduating Michigan, is applying to law school, and Columbia is considered the top law school in New York, and I would never let him apply. They would never get $1 from my family.
Yeah.
And even if they offered him a full ride scholarship, I would not let him attend because it is a hotbed for anti-Semitism.
Yeah, definitely.
No Jewish student should be exposed to that. Should be
Exactly.
fearful of having to walk across campus, fear for their physical safety, their emotional safety. And that's what Jewish students have been experiencing.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that you also personally experienced, since you shifted your platform to advocate for Israel so strongly and for the Republican Party, which you know is a big thing, and you've suffered backlash and threats and personal losses in your personal life, which is, you know, it's now hitting really close to home.
Yep.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, first I'd like to give your listeners a little bit of background because I think it will feed into how I deal with it. You know, as you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, I am a registered dietitian by trade. I'm the CEO and founder of a health and wellness company that I've had for 25 years. And that is how I always use my social media platform to educate and to inspire and to help people, you know, look and feel their best through, you know, dietary intervention. And October 7th happened, and like most Jews in the world, we sat horrified. We had never seen anything like this in our lifetime. The brutality, the interest and really the destruction of Israel in such an open, direct display. And it took me around 24 hours to process it. And I think what was even more shocking than what we had just witnessed was, I believe we all expected the world to look at Israel as the victim of one of the most horrific terrorist attacks in the world. And yet within 48 hours, rather than Israel being painted as the victim, Israel was painted as somehow the aggressor, as if they had it coming. And then words like genocide, colonialism, apartheid were being thrown around. And all of a sudden, you felt this wave on social media start to really build and build and build, where you felt like this tsunami was coming. And I couldn't understand it, that it was so clear what had happened and where was the sympathy? Yeah. Where were the stories about the families? Yeah. And all of a sudden the narrative became about the Palestinian plight. So that's why I took to my social media to start to want to bring light to what really had happened, to talk about the history, to use facts to sort of turn the tide rather than to get emotional. Yeah. And that's really where this started. I was also sort of surprised that so few Jewish voices were speaking up. And I'll be honest, as someone in, you know, with the history in health, I don't have an extensive background in studying, like, you know, geopolitics or understanding, you know, the history of this region. But as a Jewish person, I felt an obligation to do my part to speak up on behalf of Israel and to fight anti-Semitism. And because there were so few other voices speaking, I felt even more a burden or responsibility
Obligated
to
to
speak
do.
up. But, so often people have said, thank you so much. And it's very hard for me to receive a thank you for something that I'm doing for myself and my own children. It's almost as intuitive or as instinctive as breathing,
Yeah.
or it's like when, you get up and you make your bed. It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And how can I, as a Jew in the diaspora, not do my part, especially since I have a platform,
Yeah.
to try and turn the tide or to educate or to bring information in a world, especially in the digital space, that we are losing the PR war.
Yeah.
So that really has been my motivation the whole time. And whether or not my voice has had an impact, and I hope it has, but Inbal, even if it hasn't, I never wanted to look back at this time in history and have to ask myself, could I have done something?
Yeah.
And I just want to know that I did what I could, whether it was effective or not. That's sort of out of my hands. All we can do is show up. But I do believe it is every Jew's responsibility to speak up right now. We really only have each other.
Yeah. And I have an interesting question. They say a healthy mind in a healthy body. And I know that your whole platform was about health and healthy living. And I think the October 7th created a situation where we do not have a healthy mind because of everything that's going on, the stress. Do you think there's a way that you can combine that? Do you miss your old life from before? I think in a way there is such a great place where you can combine that healthy living, so your mind will be in a healthier body, so we can sort of fight everything we're going through.
So yes, I've always believed in an integrative approach to wellness, mind, body, spirit. So yes, what you eat, but how you live and how you practice, right? Whether it's religion or meditation, exercise, but diet, health, collectively, that is what I define as someone who's in good health, right? So mental, spiritual, physical. And yes, if one is absent, then you don't have complete health.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to be on this mission with the FIDF because that is one of their goals. They are raising hundreds of millions of dollars to create a PTSD center, recognizing that if we don't heal the people of Israel, then Israel does not have a future.
Yeah.
Spirits are so broken right now. We have experienced so much trauma, so much loss. So yes, I am a firm believer that mental health, physical health will all be essential to a healthy Israeli society in the future. Many activists, if that's what you want to call me, had careers prior to speaking up, before October 7th. Where I have struggled to incorporate my work into my social media platform is that, for me, health and wellness is a very positive, uplifting space. I'm making recipes, I'm educating, and I was really challenged to find this balance where in one video, I'm creating a video about subjects that are horrific, whether it's making a video about learning about the Bibas family or having to make a video about antisemitism. The energy is fraught with indignation, with pain and suffering. And then for the next post to be something so positive, making a healthy recipe in the kitchen, if I was following me, I would feel like whiplash. And also, to make one video where you could see I'm in pain, but then the very next day, I'm in the kitchen joyfully, I was concerned that it could almost read insincerity. Mm-hmm. And I just felt this is a time right now for Israel where I can provide all my attention, undivided. So I made a promise to God that I'll share with you here. And since October 7th, I have not used my platform for my professional business at all. And I said I would honor that until all the hostages return, dead or alive. Because
Wow.
I personally, and I give people credit who can, talk about fashion, talk about their activism, and it can work for some people. I couldn't find that path forward where I felt I was able to find that balance, but to also know me, I don't give 100%, I give 110%. And therefore, I didn't want to give like 50-50 because the work that I'm doing right now as an activist for Israel's Frank is so important. I did not want to take away even a small percent to focus on something that can be there in the future. But to answer your question, yes. Do I see the opportunity to pivot back into my work in a really authentic, caring way and apply that to help those heal that have gone through this very traumatic experience? Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I'm meeting with, her name is Jamie. She works with Eish Ha'am, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they are, this amazing organization that through education really strengthens people's connection to Israel, to Judaism, and it's an opportunity for Jews in the diaspora to also strengthen that connection. They do through all these educational videos. And she had reached out to me and she said, I want to do your diet program, F Factor. So I actually brought with me in my suitcase all the literature, all the components. And I said, we'll work off the side. But yes, I do see the need for people to want to eat healthy. That is my expertise. It's what I do, it's what I've done for 25 years. And I do hope to return to it. But the promise to God was once all the hostages returned home, I wanted him to know he had my full commitment.
That's amazing. I know you don't like when people thank you, but from a Jewish woman to a Jewish woman, I want to say thank you for everything you're doing, for using your platform, for putting 24/7 for this country. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for being here today. Thank you.
No, thank you necessary, but I will receive it because I know it's coming, from such a beautiful place, and I'm humbled. But no thanks are necessary because I do believe this is my obligation and my honor to use my voice to do the right thing. And we are one people.
Yeah.
And
we're very, very lucky.
Yeah. When I was packing my suitcase to come here, someone asked me, "Oh, do you have family in Israel?" And I said, yes, I have 10 million brothers and sisters. That is the beauty of, Am Yisrael, is that we are one people. So even though, I am living in New York, I am here to show solidarity and to let the people of Israel know that I love them, they are my family, and I just want to be of service.
Amazing. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Inbal.
You're welcome.